WNST, the beginning of the Zach Britton and Adam Jones season, but certainly for our Luke Jones, he has been going back and forth from the warehouse out to Owings Mills and spending a lot more time out with the Purple Birds where, first things first, Luke, they're out there, they're playing football now. We had a chance to talk to a lot of the players before it opened. Now that it's open, we'll hear from Flacco, we'll hear from the coaches this weekend. It really is sort of a lovely little place to go watch practice now, isn't it?
It really is, and with the first day of training camp, I arrived about an hour before the scheduled practice, which was right around lunchtime when they got going on Thursday. There was already a line. Now, it wasn't a ridiculous line of cars. By at least the accounts people I talked to, it seemed to flow pretty well. But the logistics of it, they can handle up to 2,000 fans, and that's all based on the number of parking passes they give out. So, how many of those cars are full. But long story short, there's an atmosphere again. And no, it'll never be Westminster, and we understand that, and I understand completely that there are fans who still lament that training camp is no longer at McDaniel College, but this is a pretty decent atmosphere that it appears that they've been able to create in Owings Mills at their training facility, and it's something that is needed, quite frankly. So, fun, certainly. Beautiful weather to start camp anyway. I'm sure we'll get some of those days where it's getting toasty in the mid-90s and humid, but
you'll be upset that I gave you a black WNST shirt.
Right. But a good start to camp, and for the Ravens, good news, an uneventful start, at least at the very beginning. We'll see how it goes into the weekend and into the first full week of camp, trying to avoid those injuries.
Well, day one, the first thing you see off the video feed is Lamar Jackson twirling one, right? And this is going to be the story on a daily basis. I do not want to in any way, and certainly you and I will not in any way, cover this as it is the Kardashians. I mean, we don't... even on our most bombastic day, we would not portray this as any sort of competition like that.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting that I'd like to see a running tab of the number of tweets and videos and pictures of Lamar Jackson compared to Joe Flacco on the team's official site, which, that's not my call, whatever, But you're right. I think.
Well, there's interest in the backup quarterback.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's always interest in the backup quarterback. But when you take one in the first round, regardless of what you just alluded to, that there's no competition, at least at this point in time, like we said, later in the season, if Joe Flacco's having a bad year, the Ravens are having a bad year, then that's a different conversation. But for right now, Flacco's the quarterback. But there's a lot of interest in Jackson, and rightfully so, because the Ravens have even reflected that in the fact that they've had him on the field doing different things, whether it's throwing the ball, running the ball, and we'll see that play out. I don't know how often we'll see it in games, but it's going to be there enough that the opposition has to prepare for it, and everyone knows what kind of athlete he is. So from that standpoint, it's incredibly exciting. I said to you in one of our recent conversations that this is the most I've looked forward to the preseason in a long, long time. And you know my disdain for fake football, so I'm not someone who fakes enthusiasm for preseason games. But
you can't wait to get on that bus to Canton.
I'm very much looking forward to watching Lamar Jackson play, and I don't expect it to all be pretty. I think there could be some downright ugly moments at times, but the thought of seeing him running around against some guys that are going to be bagging groceries in a few weeks when he's playing in the third quarter of the Hall of Fame game or whenever it might be, it's going to be fun to watch. And if you're the Ravens, regardless of where you fall on the whole Flacco, Lamar Jackson meter as far as support and confidence and all those things, it's only a good thing if Lamar Jackson proves to be able to play, because that gives the Ravens options moving forward beyond 2018. So it's going to be fun, and certainly it's going to be a major, major storyline, whether it's authentic or whether it's something that's a creation of national media or disgruntled fans or whoever it might be. There are going to be plenty of eyes on Lamar Jackson, and understandably so.
Well, this would have been an interesting Hard Knocks or whatever, right? And I guess as the extended training camp happens on a daily basis, the interesting part will be what plays wind up really in the playbook beginning on September 9th that will in some way either decoy Lamar Jackson, put the ball into a position where he can maybe have the ball, and that will take certainly a level of what used to be discomfort for Joe Flacco in gadget, gimmick, high school, wildcat, call it whatever you want to call it, but this melding of all of that and the ideology of all of that, while Flacco tries to throw passes to Crabtree and this kid Snead, who looks interesting, and the tight end who has appointed himself very, very well in that sort of Todd Heap, Dennis Pitta tradition, and a running back here who comes back with something to say. So, I mean, there's a lot of things going on here, but as it relates to Flacco and Jackson on the field, this will be a fascinating group of plays every time we see it, what they're trying to do, what they're trying to hide from teams that they want to break out during the regular season, because that's going to be part of building what is going to be a different kind of offense than what it used to be, I think.
Yeah, and I think as much as there's excitement at those prospects, there are a heck of a lot of moving parts in this offense right now. I mean, you mentioned the quarterback dynamic. That's going to garner the attention, but this team's going to have a new center and a new right tackle than it did a year ago. So you have that. You have 3 new veteran wide receivers in the mix. You mentioned Hayden Hurst and also Mark Andrews, 2 rookie tight ends. I mean, there are so many moving parts, and as much as I agree that, yeah, I think this offense is going to look different, I think you're going to see a lot more RPOs from, whether it's Flacco running it, whether it's
That's
Lamar
run-pass
Jackson.
option, by the way. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah, run-pass option, which anyone who's more a student of the game, I mean, you've seen, this isn't anything brand new by any means. I mean, this is something that has really been prevalent at the collegiate level with spread offenses for quite some time. And, of course, go back 5-6 years ago with Kaepernick in San Francisco, RG3 in Washington at that point in time, a little bit with Russell Wilson, but, it was really, kind of those, Kaepernick and RG3 that, where this really became something to be part of the NFL, and it hasn't really gone away. It looks different from team to team and offense to offense, and certainly more mobile quarterbacks are going to be bigger threats to keeping the ball. But it
and a
really
pain in the ass to defend week by week when this is something you have in your offense that, let's say, Tom Brady doesn't have or Peyton Manning never had. It creates an issue where you don't want to be in that one play that gets you burned, that gets you beat when you watch Justin Tucker run out there and kick a 51-yarder to beat you,
Sure. But as much as all those things are fascinating potential developments, there is a concern that you've run the risk of having too much going on. And you cast such a wide net in what you're trying to do that you don't master anything. You don't become particularly good at anything. You're just dabbling in a lot of stuff. So that's going to be the challenge for Marty Morningwig, for Greg Roman, for James Urban, their new quarterbacks coach, as they try to marry getting Lamar Jackson involved because he is a special athlete and you'd like to have him on the field for at least a handful of plays, with what Joe Flacco is going to do in the passing game, with what your, quote, traditional running game is going to be, and trying to build rapport, build chemistry, build cohesion with so many of the other new members of this offense. I don't want to say, it is risky. I mean, there is a concern that you try to do too much, just like we've talked about, going back to the quarterback narrative and those storylines. How do you set things up to be optimal for Joe Flacco, who clearly is coming off some down statistical seasons and no one would say is in the prime of his career at this point in time? How do you marry that with trying to get Lamar Jackson involved and, try to develop him as a quarterback? So there's just a whole lot going on with this offense, and I think, there's intrigue, and I think there's potential, and I do think there's more upside with this group collectively than there's been in the last 2-3 years, let's say, but you do run the risk of you're trying all these different things and you don't master any of it, and you're not particularly good at any of it, and then you have an offense that is maybe trying a lot of stuff, but guess what? Still going 3 and out a lot and struggling to move the ball consistently and not finishing off drives and scoring touchdowns and relying on field goals too frequently. So, yeah, there's still plenty of questions about this offense. It certainly looks much different than it has here in recent years.
He is Baltimore Luke on Twitter and Luke at WNST.net. He'll be in Owings Mills if there's any breaking news at all. You'll get it first on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is here on Thursdays, driving you home with the SSV on WNST. Also, our WNST coverage brought to you by King Discount Liquors. You want to get out to Pulaski Highway and give the King a ring. My Free the Bird shirt, banned now on Comcast Television. But by the way, Luke, you'll be happy to know they have Fisher's popcorn at the counter at King Discount Liquors. It's stuck in my teeth right now. I just want to make everybody aware of that. Whether it's a Malbec Stouts, Johnny Bev is there for the party this summer, and ice cold beer and refreshments, and the lottery tickets as well. It is King Discount Liquors, even the popcorn and the other novelties there as well. Watching the defense and watching the secondary and the depth and the amount of warm bodies running around out there, this is the first time you're going to be talking about deep depth at the corner and the secondary positions. But still, a lot of young guys battling to just get onto the field. If you consider that the Weddles and the Jeffersons and the and the Carrs and the Smiths have things locked down to some degree.
Yeah, I think that this defense. So much has been made about the failures they've had late in games, late in the season, the last couple of years. We've talked about that at length, and that's still there, and that's still going to be something that's going to be in the back of their minds, no matter how much Eric Weddle or C.J. Mosley or whoever it might be that's commenting on it will say that they've moved on. That's there, but you have a new defensive coordinator. The only player that took as much as one defensive snap that's not on the roster anymore is Ladarius Webb. Every other player that took at least one defensive snap last year is on this roster still, which is unheard of in today's NFL with the salary cap. You just don't see that. It's one thing when you bring 11 starters back. It's another thing when you bring all but one of your backups back in addition to that. So there's a lot of continuity. There are some significant changes to this defense. It's not as though they've reinvented the wheel in schemes, but how they're going to execute those schemes different. They're putting more of the onus on the players. I think you're going to see a lot more customization where you have a different front with different coverages, different blitz packages, whereas maybe it was a little more standardized in the past, without anyone giving away too many secrets in how the Ravens do things. But I think they feel that it's going to give players more flexibility, and I think it's going to they feel that this is going to make them less predictable, which that's a big part of football. You can talk all you want about beating your man one-on-one, and sure, you have to have the physical tools and the athleticism, the speed, the strength to do that, but a big part of this game is deception and making your opponent less aware, unaware, completely clueless about what you're trying to do, and the Ravens feel that with some of the changes and tweaks they're going to make with their defense, they're going to be able